Hey everybody, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to be recording the process of making the glass material that is going to be in the modular walls that we've been making in the series so far. So in Blender, I put together this quick little rendered view of what the modular walls look like so far. And if we click on this modular wall, you can see it's made up of two materials, and the glass material is one of them. But right now, there's no texture or anything, and we could just change the shader to glass. But we're going to need actual textures in Unity where the game will take place, and like we will need the mask map, normal map, and base color for HDRP. And the reason we even need stuff like a normal map is because I might want to put in some details or maybe some like dirt that sort of like bumps out a little bit. So instead of making this in Substance Designer, which normally I'd make all of my tiling materials in, I'm going to do it in Painter just because I think it's easier to make things like opacity maps and stuff like that in Painter. And Painter is just a little bit more artistic, so if I want, I can just paint in like some dirt details and things like that. So yeah, this is probably one of the few tiling materials that I will make in Painter. Whereas something like the floor or like trim sheets, things like that, I would do in Designer because they're more technical and more architectural. But glass is more organic, so I think I can get away with doing it in Painter. So this will probably be a pretty quick video because it shouldn't take too long to do this. I'm going to go into the interlocking floor and just grab the 4x4 plane that we had. So just this, and I'll bake the mesh maps. It only has to be like 2K. And all we have to do to make glass at this point is in the texture set settings, we have to add in the opacity channel. So I'll delete that layer and to create a fill layer. And what we'll do is make the color something light gray, like that. I'm going to turn the opacity all the way down, metallic all the way down, and I'm going to make the roughness shiny or just whatever I feel looks pretty good for glass. And Unity will recognize in the mask map that's exported that we've turned the opacity down, so it will be transparent in Unity as long as we make it the translucent shader. So that looks good. And now what I'm going to do is go into smart masks and just add a little variation. So maybe like a surface worn. And all I'll do here is change the roughness a little bit. Like so, just make it a little bit more cloudy. And maybe rust ground. So once again, we only want to change the roughness. Maybe make it pretty shiny. That looks good. And then I'm going to grab some scratches. Make it pretty rough. I still want to show the color here, and I'm also going to show the opacity. So these will actually show up, which is pretty cool. And I can just knock down the height just a little bit, so maybe like that. So negative 0.01 I did. So it's just a little bit. And if that ends up being too much in Unity, I can just lower the normal map intensity. So these scratches are a little too prominent, so I'll just lower the opacity a tiny bit, so 30. And I think that is going to be pretty good for the glass. The next thing I wanted to do is add in some underlying details. I kind of want sort of like a mesh going underneath. So what I will do is make a folder, call this details, because these are all roughness details that lie on top of the glass. But the glass itself, if it wasn't damaged, will not be part of the details, so I'll hide those for now. I'm going to make another layer below the actual glass. And I want to go into procedurals and find some sort of mesh looking pattern. I think that sort of resembles a fence too much, so I don't want to go with that, but something like that. So what I could do is just take the tile generator and maybe like rotate it 45 degrees on its side. Maybe something like that might look good as well. Oh yeah, I like the look of this. So I'm going to drag it into the opacity. And what this will do is make, I believe, the black parts will be transparent. So I'm going to invert that, and that didn't actually work. Okay. So what I'm going to do is preview this in the base color, just to make sure. Okay, so inverting it does work. So we want invert on. So invert on. Border width. All right, border width I'll turn down to 0.1. And I'm only using the base color sort of just as like a preview. Okay. So 0.1. I'll change this to 0.1. Just so I know how it looks. And tile 16 works. All right, so 16. So now what we have is we're saying that anywhere that's black here is really what's being shown since I put on the invert. So now in the base color, I want to make that all black. And I don't want to change anything else besides that. Alright, so that is our glass material. So I'm going to export it. So I'll just export it to maybe, let me see. I'll export it into the environment. And I'll call it 4x4 glass window material. All right, so there's our maps. So you can see the base color is this. So nothing is colored except for these sort of mesh-like patterns and the scratches. Nothing else has color to it. And then you can see all of our roughness information here in the mask map. And here's the normal. And you can barely see any details at all except for some minor scratches. So one thing I noticed is I think that is going to be too dark for the mesh materials. So I'm going to turn this down to maybe 30. Actually, let's do 50. And I'll export it one more time. And did that even update? Let me just check. Alright, I think that's right. Or it's these actually. Alright, so I'll drop these into the glass window material instead. I'll replace it. And let's check out this. Yeah, so it is a lot more faint than it was before. That's what I want. So yeah, there's our color map. A lot of our roughness variation, that looks good. And our normal. So I'll get this into Unity, set up the shaders, stuff like that. But yeah, so that is how I make the window glass material in Substance Designer. So thank you guys all for watching. Thank you for the support so far, and I will see you guys all next time.